The night was thick with tension inside Riverside General Hospital, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly as nurses hurried between patients. The sound of footsteps echoed through the narrow halls when, just after 8:15 p.m., the sliding doors burst open to reveal an ambulance crew pushing in a stretcher. On it lay Gloria Ramirez, a 31-year-old woman known by her neighbors as kind and cheerful but now pale, weak and barely conscious. She had been battling advanced cervical cancer, and her body was failing. The medical team immediately sprang into action, connecting oxygen tubes and IV lines trying to stabilize her erratic pulse. The scene appeared routine at first, another emergency, another patient fighting to live, but soon, something unexplainable began to unfold. As the doctors examined her, they noticed a strange oily sheen covering her skin. It shimmered under the bright hospital lights, almost as if her body had been coated with a thin layer of grease. A nurse leaned closer and caught a whiff of an odd metallic scent, mixed with something fruity like ammonia and garlic. Within minutes, the smell spread through the room, subtle at first but quickly becoming overwhelming. One nurse began to feel dizzy, another complained of a burning sensation in her throat, and a third felt her stomach twist with nausea. The team tried to ignore the discomfort, focusing on Gloria's failing heartbeat, but one by one, they started to lose strength. As a doctor attempted to draw blood, she noticed strange crystalline particles floating inside the syringe, something no one had ever seen before. Confusion turned to fear when a nurse suddenly collapsed beside the gurney. Then another fainted. The emergency room, once filled with sharp voices giving medical orders, fell into chaos. Staff stumbled out of the room, gasping for air, their vision blurring. The remaining doctors stayed behind, desperate to keep Gloria alive despite the toxic atmosphere surrounding her. Moments later, the monitor flatlined. The sharp, continuous beep filled the room as the lead doctor tried one last round of resuscitation, but it was too late. At 8:50 p.m., Gloria Ramirez was pronounced dead. The room was silent except for the echo of machines and the sound of distant alarms. Outside, the rest of the hospital buzzed with panic as more staff reported feeling sick. No one understood what had just happened, but it was clear that this was not an ordinary death. Something inside that room had turned deadly, and the nightmare was only beginning. As the monitors went silent and Gloria Ramirez's body lay still, confusion turned to fear across Riverside Hospital. Nurses stumbled into the hallway gasping for air, their faces pale and their limbs trembling. Some were vomiting, others fainting without warning. Within minutes, the emergency department became a scene of chaos. Doctors shouted for everyone to evacuate the area, while security blocked off the corridors leading to the trauma room. The hospital's emergency protocol was activated, and patients waiting in nearby rooms were hurriedly moved to safety. No one could explain what had just happened, but the fear was spreading faster than any illness. Paramedics and orderlies who had come into contact with Gloria's body began collapsing one by one. The nurse who had drawn her blood was placed on a stretcher, barely conscious. Another staff member developed muscle spasms and shortness of breath. The smell that had hung in the air earlier still lingered faintly, a sharp and chemical-like odor that made everyone uneasy. The room where Gloria had been treated was sealed off immediately, and ventilation systems were shut down to prevent contamination. When hospital officials called for help, hazmat teams arrived wearing heavy protective suits, their movements slow and deliberate as if they were entering a biological danger zone. Outside the hospital, the night sky filled with flashing lights from ambulances, police cars, and news vans. Word had spread quickly. Something toxic had been released inside Riverside General. Reporters speculated about a chemical attack or an unknown virus. Family members of patients waited in terror, watching as emergency crews surrounded the building. Inside, the once busy emergency department now stood eerily quiet. The walls seemed to hum with tension, and every creak or movement made people flinch. Over the next several hours, 6 hospital workers were hospitalized due to exposure. One nurse was placed in intensive care, suffering from seizures and respiratory problems. The rest were quarantined for observation, while officials tried to determine what kind of substance could cause such symptoms. Medical investigators combed through the ER, collecting air samples and swabs from every surface. Nothing obvious was found. No spilled chemicals, no broken vials, no evidence of contamination. Yet the mystery deepened as the hospital staff whispered among themselves. Something inside Gloria Ramirez's body had poisoned the air around her. No one dared to go near her remains, and the question that haunted everyone was simple but chilling. What had they just encountered? In the days that followed the chaos at Riverside Hospital, investigators from multiple agencies arrived to uncover what had turned an ordinary medical emergency into a night of horror. Forensic experts, toxicologists, and pathologists examined every detail, hoping to find a logical explanation. The emergency room remained sealed, treated as a contamination site, while Gloria Ramirez's body was moved to a secure facility for testing. Scientists were puzzled. How could a human body emit toxic fumes strong enough to knock people unconscious? The question sounded impossible, yet it had happened before everyone's eyes. The first autopsy was performed under strict safety conditions. Technicians wore protective suits and every step was monitored. Samples of Gloria's blood revealed something unusual. Traces of a compound known as dimethylsulfone, a chemical sometimes produced naturally in the human body but rarely in such high amounts. Even stranger, her blood had a cloudy texture and when stored it left an oily residue inside containers. Researchers theorized that under certain conditions, dimethylsulfone could break down into a more dangerous compound called dimethylsulfate, a highly toxic gas known to cause convulsions, paralysis, and respiratory failure. The idea was alarming. Could her body have turned into a miniature chemical factory, transforming harmless substances into deadly poison? Scientists tried to reproduce the reaction in controlled settings, mixing chemicals that might have been present during her treatment, but the results were inconsistent. Some samples showed changes, others did not. It was as though Gloria's body had undergone a one-time reaction that defied replication. Her family insisted she had been a normal woman, not someone who worked with or around hazardous materials. Still, rumors spread that she had been using unconventional treatments at home to relieve pain from her cancer, or that medications given in the ER had combined with chemicals in her bloodstream to trigger a deadly reaction. Theories multiplied, but none offered full answers. The hospital remained under scrutiny, its reputation shaken, while staff members struggled with fear and guilt. Many questioned whether they could have done something differently, while others were haunted by the memory of that metallic odor and the way their bodies collapsed without warning. The scientific community debated endlessly, but no one could fully explain what had happened that night. The mystery of Gloria Ramirez deepened, turning her from a patient into one of the most baffling cases in medical history, a phenomenon that seemed to break the rules of science itself. As months passed, the mystery surrounding Gloria Ramirez refused to fade. The official reports offered little clarity, and whispers of hidden truths began circulating through Riverside. People wanted answers, and when science failed to provide them, speculation filled the silence. Some investigators began looking beyond the chemical theories, convinced that something far more sinister had taken place that night. A few believed that Gloria had been given the wrong medication, or that a toxic substance had been accidentally administered through her IV line. Others suggested the hospital was hiding an internal mistake, afraid of lawsuits or public outrage. The lack of transparency only made the rumors stronger. Then came another shocking claim, that Gloria had been using a household chemical known as DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, as a home remedy for pain relief. The substance was once used by athletes to reduce inflammation, but later restricted for human use. People who knew Gloria said she had mentioned using it to ease her cancer pain, when her prescribed medication wasn't enough. DMSO, when applied to the skin, creates a slick, oily texture and a faint garlic-like odor, the same description given by the medical staff the night she died. When combined with oxygen and certain medical treatments, DMSO could theoretically convert into dimethyl sulfate, the same deadly chemical suspected to have poisoned the ER. The possibility shocked the investigators. Could a simple pain remedy have transformed into a toxic gas inside her bloodstream? The theory seemed both logical and horrifying, yet even this explanation left gaps. No one could replicate the precise chemical transformation in lab conditions. Some claimed the reaction could have occurred due to the high concentration of oxygen and electric shocks from defibrillation during her resuscitation. Others argued it was impossible, and that the real cause remained hidden within the hospital's handling of her body. Meanwhile, Gloria's family demanded justice. They felt she was being blamed for her own death, portrayed as careless when she had only been seeking relief from pain. They insisted the hospital had mishandled the situation and used her as a scapegoat. But the more they pushed, the more resistance they faced. Officials wanted the case closed. The hospital wanted its reputation restored, and the truth seemed buried under layers of confusion, fear, and silence. The story of Gloria Ramirez had turned from tragedy into a haunting puzzle, where every answer led only to deeper uncertainty. Years passed, but the story of Gloria Ramirez continued to cast a long shadow over Riverside Hospital and everyone who had been there that night. The case became known worldwide as one of the strangest medical mysteries ever recorded. Journalists called her the Toxic Lady, and documentaries, scientific articles, and conspiracy forums all tried to explain what had really happened. Yet despite endless theories, no one could uncover a single proven truth. The staff who survived the incident struggled to return to normal life. Some left medicine altogether, still haunted by the memory of collapsing on the ER floor, the burning in their throats, and the metallic scent that seemed to cling to the air. For many, the memory of that night was something they could never forget. Scientists continued to debate what caused the strange reaction. Some clung to the DMSO theory, believing that under the intense conditions of the emergency room, Gloria's homemade pain treatment had somehow transformed into a lethal compound. Others thought the answer lay in an unknown interaction between cancer medications and the hospital's treatments. A few even speculated that the cause was something entirely new, an unclassified chemical process or an environmental factor no one had considered. But with time, evidence faded, and samples degraded, leaving behind only speculation and unanswered questions. Gloria's family eventually buried her after months of delay, but peace did not come easily. They felt that she had been unfairly blamed, turned into a scientific anomaly rather than remembered as a mother, a sister, and a kind woman fighting for her life. To them, she was not the Toxic Lady, but Gloria Ramirez, a person who deserved compassion, not curiosity. They spoke publicly about their pain, urging the world to see her story not just as a mystery, but as a tragedy of human misunderstanding. Despite the confusion, one truth remained clear. Gloria's death revealed how fragile and unpredictable life could be. It reminded doctors and scientists that even in a world ruled by logic and data, there are still things beyond explanation. The incident forced hospitals to rethink their safety procedures and emergency protocols, and although time has passed, the mystery endures, haunting those who seek to understand it. Gloria Ramirez's final moments remain frozen in medical history, a terrifying reminder that sometimes the human body can become the greatest mystery of all.